What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So, with the playoffs approaching, and after having just watched Nick Saban school another one of his former assistants in an embarrassing fashion and punch his ticket to the college football playoff once more, I got to thinking, who are my top 10 coaches in college football today? And so I made a list, and I'm going to share it here with all of you. But before we get into the list, I need to put out a quick disclaimer. These rankings are entirely my opinion about the best coaches in football right now. Not the best resumes or the best historical achievements that coaches have. Just if I was an athletic director and I could pick any head coach, who am I picking today? And so with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the list with number 10. So, at number 10, I have Sam Pittman, and I already know this is going to be a controversial pick just due to how new Pittman is to the coaching scene. And if I'm being honest, I really don't think he works at almost any other school than Arkansas. But he has done such a good job at Arkansas, I had to include him on the list. I mean, he's got them to a bowl game this year. Not just any bowl game either, the Outback Bowl this year, when they hadn't even won a conference game before he got here in over 2 years. 2 years. They were on like a 20-something game SEC losing streak. It's amazing. He had them ranked in the AP top 10 this year. Albeit it was a short-lived trip to the top 10, but still, just him getting them there is absolutely amazing. The fact that he's got them there this quickly is incredible. He came within 7 points of upsetting Alabama. Played one of the hardest schedules in America and still went 8-4. And like I said, got the Outback Bowl appearance. Under Sam Pittman, I think Arkansas is here and here to stay. And, I mean, honestly, what he's done is just so remarkable. Got to put him on the list. He's my number 10. Number 9, another controversial choice. I have Lane Kiffin. He's one of those love him or hate him coaches. Lane has definitely garnered a little bit of a checkered past. His off-the-field antics certainly aren't always a good look. But, to be honest, he's left a lot of that behind him in recent years, and he's really cleaned up his act off the field, at least as much as you could expect him to. And what you cannot doubt about him is that he is an elite offensive mind, and he can develop quarterbacks with the best of them. Matt Corral is going to make a lot of money, and a lot of that is thanks to Lane Kiffin. I mean, that's not even mentioning the fact that Lane got Ole Miss, a perennial subpar team, to the SEC in the SEC West to a 10-2 season. So he's developed Matt Corral into possibly the number 1 quarterback taken in the draft, at least a top 5 quarterback taken. He's got Ole Miss to 10-2 in the SEC West, which is crazy. And now they're in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, needless to say, I think if you take that Ole Miss program to a New Year's Six Bowl this fast, you're doing something right, regardless of how people feel about you off the field. And so Lane Kiffin is my number 9 head coach. At number 8, I have Daveranda. Now, Aranda is in some ways similar to Sam Pittman and sort of similar to Lane Kiffin in that he's very new to being a head coach, at least at this level, and not everyone was sold on how he'd turn out at Baylor when he first got the job there. But Aranda has absolutely silenced any critics on his team's performance this year because a Big 12 championship and a Sugar Bowl appearance will absolutely shut up any detractors that you have. I mean, it is what it is. When you do that good, hard to complain. Not to mention, he beat Oklahoma, which is huge for Baylor. Aranda is very early on in his coaching career, but he seems to have that insane laser focus on the process of things, not just the results. He seems to truly enjoy the grind of it, and his team takes on that personality too. And that's not too dissimilar from a Nick Saban or a Kirby Smart, for that matter, who both are incredibly successful coaches in their own right. And if you don't believe me that he's a top 10 coach in America right now, ask all the schools who were deeply considering him for their program this year. I mean, he was mentioned with USC and LSU extensively before re-signing an extension with Baylor, and I think that alone should tell you what you need to know about Daveranda as a high-quality head coach, and that is why he is my number 8 head coach in America today. So, number 7, we have Brian Kelly. Now, despite his horrible Southern accent attempt and all of the quite hysterical office memes that have been generated because of it, and in my opinion, the pretty horrible way he handled leaving Notre Dame. He is still an elite coach. It is what it is. You might not like him off the field, but he's an elite coach. I mean, look at what he's done at Notre Dame. Over the years, he has consistently put together 10-win seasons. He has multiple playoff appearances. He's got national championship appearances before that when there was the BCS. And he's done all that with a very restrictive university as far as academics and off-the-field issues are concerned. He can't recruit the same guys that Georgia, Alabama, LSU, and all them other Ohio States and all them can recruit because he knows they're not going to make it into Notre Dame. They're not going to academically qualify, and Notre Dame doesn't make exceptions for that. And he's still gotten them to the level of success that they've had. Now he's at LSU. He'll have the green light to recruit more and more talent that was originally off limits to him, and that doesn't mean he'll hit on that talent, but it gives him a better opportunity to. And I know he's consistently lost in the big games. He's got to. But to be fair, when he's lost a big game to a team, when was he the more talented team? In other words, what big game has he gone into with the more talented team and lost? Really none of them that I can think of. And at LSU, he has a chance to make up for and cover that talent gap that he's had at Notre Dame, and that might be enough to get him over the hump. But even if it isn't, his resume is still a lot better than a large number of coaches can even dream of having, and therefore he is my number 7 head coach in college football today. But number 6, we have Lincoln Riley. Now he's another coach who has pretty consistently failed to win the big game, and his teams have at times fizzled out against other truly elite teams in college football. That's almost entirely due to poor defense. What Riley always has, and you cannot question at all, is high-level offenses with elite quarterback play and a super frustrating scheme for defenses to deal with dominant, explosive playmakers on the perimeter. Now, he hasn't had to build his own program as he inherited an elite-level OU program, but he made them even better than they were when he got there, and he's consistently shown to be a high-level coach despite his defensive woes. Now, he also has multiple playoff appearances, multiple conference championships, and he's also super young still. Now that he's in the Pac-12, Oregon doesn't even have a coach in it. It should honestly be a cakewalk for him. Easy recruiting grounds in Southern California. If he can get even half of those kids to stay home, they'll be far and away the most talented team in his whole conference. He's going to have little to no competition over there from the Pac-12. And so Lincoln Riley, in my opinion, he took the easy way out in going to USC. He took the easy way out, and instead of staying at Oklahoma, fighting through it, he knew they were going to the SEC. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, and it really could guarantee him even more playoff appearances in the future. Now, would I have done it? No, I wouldn't have, personally. But you can't hate on him as a coach for making the decision to go somewhere where life is going to be easier for him than it would have been otherwise. So he is my number 6 coach, despite how I may feel about his decision to leave Oklahoma. My number 5 head coach is Jimbo Fisher. So Jimbo is hard for me to rank because I know he's an elite level coach from the teams that he consistently fields at Texas A&M. But they aren't in the same class as the Ohio State, the Georgias, the Bamas, or the Oklahomas even. Now, he was the first Nick Saban assistant to finally beat him, but the season as a whole this year is still kind of disappointing overall, even with that. And I do have to credit him for consistently churning out high-level teams through that compete with the best of the best every time. Now, they don't normally beat the best of the best, but they're never an easy out, and they're always a very high-level top 10-ish team. And then if you go back to his time at Florida State, he did win a national championship, and that's something I can't take away from him. And honestly, it's the only reason that I have him above Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly. But with all that being said, I do have to see more from him going forward than what he's been putting together recently if he wants to stay in my top 5, which I know he does. He cares a lot about my opinion on football. I know he does. He's watching this video right now, I promise you. Anyway, Jimbo Fisher is my number 5 head coach. So, at number 4, I have Ryan Day Another coach who I kind of struggle to rank, but not as much as I do with Jimbo. My struggle with Ryan Day is that he has been elite since taking over Ohio State. He has multiple playoff appearances, consistently in the top 10 or better with his teams, and he's also shown to consistently put together top-level offenses with high-level quarterback play and elite passing schemes down the field, while also not sacrificing the run game with Trey Sermon, Travion Henderson, etc. But he also took over a program in Ohio State that was already built up before he became the head coach, and he hasn't done anything to elevate them above where they were, although it's really almost impossible to elevate Ohio State from where they were, short of literally being Nick Saban. So it's kind of an unfair criticism, but also it does leave me to question a little bit, just a little bit, how much of this Ohio State success is really him and how much is just he's at Ohio State, so it's a lot easier than it would be at other places. But he did make the difficult decision this year to make changes on the defensive coaching staff that I think helped the program. Like I said, he's consistently made top 10 finishes, playoffs, elite teams across the board. My only question with him is literally, could he build his own program? We might not ever find out, but at this point he started to sustain the Ohio State program for a little while, which isn't the same as building one, but I think it's fair enough to say he's good enough to be considered a top 5 coach at the worst. I've got him at number 4, because as far as everything we've seen on the field, he's going to have Ohio State in the playoff conversation every year for years to come, or even decades to come. And he has the potential to go down as one of the greats in college football coaching. So for me, he's at number 4 right now. Then we have number 3, and it's going to be another somewhat controversial one, I'm sure, but I have Kirby Smart. Kirby is consistently maligned both by his own fan base and by the outside media. The narrative is he can't win the big game, he makes all the wrong quarterback decisions, and he's just Mark Richt 2.0. However, he now has 2 college football playoff appearances, 1 national championship appearance. He's won his division in all but 2 years since he's been at Georgia, and he's arguably the best recruiter this side of Nick Saban. And actually, if not for Saban and Alabama, he could potentially have multiple national titles by now, which I guess you could say that for a lot of teams, but still. Alas, though, he has 0, which is really the only thing holding him back in my opinion. He recruits with the best of them. He's elevated Georgia from consistent 10-win seasons under Mark Richt to playoff or bust seasons that he has now. He has an SEC title under his belt. He's made a bunch of other SEC championship appearances. Literally the only other flaw, short of not winning a national championship and beating Alabama, is that he has questionable quarterback decisions. But I feel like a lot of that can be kind of blown out of proportion. I mean, he got Jacob Eason to stay at Georgia, who was a 5-star. Never panned out at Georgia, went to Washington, didn't do great there, went to the NFL, hasn't been great, has elite arm talent, never became a great quarterback, not really his fault. Jake Fromm, after Eason got hurt, took Georgia to their first national championship appearance in decades, played outstanding as a true freshman, and him coming into his sophomore season, everybody wanted to bench Fromm for Justin Fields, but that's not an easy decision to make, and I don't feel like it would have been the right one. And if we're being honest about everything, even when Fields went to Ohio State, he didn't win anything more there than Fromm did at Georgia, despite clearly being the more talented quarterback of the two. So in hindsight, I understand the criticism about the Fromm-Fields situation, but I feel like it gets a lot more media hate than it really deserves, at least in my opinion. And now we have the same thing coming up again. Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels. We'll see how that all plays out. It's too early to tell. But for me, short of not beating Nick Saban, he's done everything else you could really expect him to do. Now, this year's playoffs could either improve his perception even more or potentially damage it greatly, as the narrative could turn on him. But only time will tell, and for now, he's at number 3 for me. Now for my number 2 head coach, and it's Dabo Swinney, and as much as I personally do not like Dabo, how he handles things off the field and on the field, there's no denying he's an elite head coach. He has multiple national championships during the reign of Nick Saban, no less, and even more college football playoff appearances. He's dominated the entire ACC to the point of relegating it to where it's basically just Clemson or nobody, as far as the national scene is concerned at least. However, this season was a struggle for Dabo and Clemson as a whole. And now they've lost Brent Venables, which could be a major loss for that entire program. And only time will tell if Dabo will suffer for that long term and if his run of success at Clemson is over. But for now, you really can't deny he's simply one of the best out there. He has one of the best resumes out there. He's a pretty clear pick for number 2. It is what it is. Now for some honorable mentions, and I'm just going to run through these guys real quick because there's so many of them I can't really explain each one. But I have Matt Campbell, PJ Fleck, Paul Christ, Mark Stoops, James Franklin, Kyle Whittingham, Kirk Ferentz, Mario Cristobal, Luke Fickell, and Jim Harbaugh. All of these coaches are great coaches. I could have put even more guys on here, like a really young Shane Beamer who's pretty impressive to me so far, a guy like maybe a Billy Napier, even a Mike Leach. There's so many good coaches out there. I can't touch on all of them. Just know that just because one of your favorite team's coaches or one of a coach that you think maybe is between 7 and 10 isn't on the list doesn't mean I think they're a bad coach. It's just everything past around 5 or 6 gets really muddy as far as the coaching conversation in college football is concerned. Anyway, now we've come to number 1, and it's Nick Saban. I mean, come on, he's the GOAT. You all knew who would be here. And if you didn't, then you must have been living under a rock for the past 2 decades. I mean, he has 7 national championships, even more conference championships. He's done it in the SEC with 2 different programs. He's the best recruiter of all time. His influence on college football is, you can't even begin to quantify it. Nobody can touch what he's done at Bama. And I don't know if anybody else ever will, but I don't need to explain this to you guys any further. Everybody knows Nick Saban is far and away the best coach in college football today, yesterday. It doesn't matter. It's really not even close. He is the number 1 coach in college football. Anyway, so that'll wrap up my list. And I know some of these picks, especially the ones closer to 10, will get blasted in the comments. And they may not age very well. But you know what? That's the nature of it. Again, it's my personal list. Anyway, if you've made it this far into the video, you are an absolute legend. And I really appreciate all the support. And let me know down below what your top 10 list is, or just where you disagree with me on my own list. Also, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this in the future, because this channel will be consistently uploading college football content. Anyway, that'll do it for me today. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.